The next show will start in 1 minute.
Ways the state commits backdoor gun confiscation.
Yes, freeze!
Number 3. Red flag laws. Red flag laws are laws which permit relatives, roommates, guardians, or law enforcement to seek a court order for police to seize an individual's firearms based on a fear of some impending physical danger posed by the individual. While the law may sound like it is protecting people from imminent threats, the reality is that red flag laws are actually undermining due process by taking people's property before the accused can defend themselves in a courtroom. What this means is that the burden shifts from being innocent until proven guilty to guilty until proven innocent. After confiscation, the accused individual must petition the court to get their firearms back, essentially making them bear the burden and expense of maintaining their fundamental rights. Red flag laws are especially dangerous because politicians continue to argue expansion, suggesting that more people should be allowed to file reports, from postal workers to next-door neighbors. This has the potential for politicization, where those who want gun control can use the law to abuse others without meaningful consequence. As evidence of the potential dangers, one man in Maryland, 61-year-old Gary Willis, was shot to death by police for refusing to give up his guns based on a red flag order. His niece, Michelle Willis, told reporters that her uncle liked to speak his mind but wouldn't hurt anybody. In 2018, several states have a red flag law in place, including California, Connecticut, Florida, Indiana, Oregon, and Washington, with more unfortunately following suit. Number 2. War on drugs. The war on drugs has been used to deny individuals their fundamental gun rights. Especially of note is the classification of cannabis as a Schedule I drug by the federal government, meaning that it is listed as a drug with no currently accepted medical use and a high potential for abuse. Thanks to culture change, people at large have discovered that cannabis does not deserve this label, and have worked to get states to legalize cannabis use for both medical and recreational purposes. However, this has not stopped the federal government from using its powers to continue oppressing individuals for what is otherwise illegal activity that is less dangerous than alcohol and cigarettes. When purchasing a firearm from a federal firearms licensed dealer, the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Federal Agency asks purchasers on Form 4473 to note if they are a user of marijuana. It asks, are you an unlawful user of or addicted to marijuana or any depressant, stimulant, narcotic drug, or any other controlled substance? Followed by a warning of, the use or possession of marijuana remains unlawful under federal law regardless of whether it has been legalized or decriminalized for medicinal or recreational purposes in the state where you reside. This statement is meant to prevent people from being able to attain firearms even if they have a legal medical marijuana card or otherwise are eligible to have marijuana under state law. Despite the DEA coming out with a report in 2017 titled Drugs of Abuse, which stated that there are no deaths from marijuana overdose reported, the federal government continues to abuse individual property rights by threatening to use guns against people for simply wanting to protect their loved ones. Number 1. Banning guns piecemeal. The greatest manipulation tactic politicians use for gun control is the banning of guns one piece at a time by using ambiguous labels. For example, the term assault weapon has been used to manipulate the public into banning guns based solely on cosmetic features. Assault weapon literally means a gun that has a selective fire switch, allowing the gun to become a fully automatic machine gun. However, politicians tout this phrase to mean any rifle that is black, can accept detachable magazines, and has some kind of pistol grip and other accessory receiver. Of course, these features have nothing to do with the internal mechanics of the gun itself, so the ruse is laid to ban guns slowly through ignorance on gun features. Such a ban took place in 1994 at the federal level under the Public Safety and Recreational Firearms Use Protection Act. This act lasted until 2004, when it was permitted to sunset in the legislature. The ban included semi-automatic rifles and pistols able to accept detachable magazines and 2 or more items like a pistol grip, a bayonet mount, a threaded barrel, or a folding stock. Of course, these features did not, in and of themselves, make the guns banned more deadly in what came out of the barrel. Rather, the ban was focused on eliminating elements of convenience and aesthetic, so that guns looked less scary to the ignorant. Although the federal ban ended, it inspired some crony state politicians to try to implement their own bans, which in some cases were even worse than the federal ban that grandfathered existing guns. For example, states like California, Connecticut, Maryland, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, and Hawaii have passed assault weapon bans in similar fashion to the federal ban. Some of these states have implemented more robust restrictions and have passed legislation to come after people for possession, despite buying before the ban. In 2016, Senate Bill 1446 was signed into law in California, banning at large what politicians called high-capacity magazines, which they defined as magazines capable of holding more than 10 rounds. Police were set to perform confiscation until federal courts temporarily enjoined the legislation from being enforced. The Ninth Federal Circuit affirmed the temporary injunction in the case Duncan v. Becerra. While this injunction is a short-term victory, the legislation may be rewritten in a new way to ban guns and gun parts. As can be seen, the government's war on guns is a serious issue that must be tackled with vigilance. Politicians are looking down every avenue they can to ban guns, and are willing to lock people away and even murder them for nothing more than possessing a gun they do not like. Remember that all laws are enforced by men with guns. Police. Police officers can and will murder people to enforce gun laws, especially under the guise of fearing for their life, because people will not willingly hand over their fundamental property rights. Please help take a stand before it's too late. Never compromise on fundamental rights. Thank you for watching and for supporting my work. And a special thank you to my fiduciaries, the Asian capitalists, Zach Glakowski and Crawford K. McDonald of ECM Real Estate Group. To join my monthly live hangouts and to help choose the next video I produce, join my Patreon page at the Philosopher's Pho or Boba Tea level. See you soon!
Yes, Freeze!
Streaming live from the Paul and Catherine Ranke Memorial Studio. This is TV Free Baltimore. Support for TV Free Baltimore comes from viewers like you. Become a TV Free Baltimore member by visiting patreon.com/TVFreeBaltimore.
As a public service, TV Free Baltimore provides a digital soapbox for those the mainstream media ignores. The opinions expressed in this live stream are not necessarily those of the owners, management, or underwriters of TV Free Baltimore. Furthermore, TV Free Baltimore streams hyper-local content focusing on politics and entertainment in the Baltimore viewing area.
You're watching Maryland Politics here on TV Free Baltimore.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Maryland Politics. I'll be your host tonight. Unfortunately, the regular host Kevin Caldwell could not be with us. He's under the weather. But we've got a great subject matter tonight, one that many people talk about, and that's public safety within Baltimore City. And for those that may not be aware, there was a recent FBI study released which showed that the robbery rate in Baltimore is the highest in the United States. So what solutions are local Democrats giving to yet another national embarrassment about Baltimore City? Well, their solution is to pass yet more gun control, to yet again try to disarm the law-abiding. And we have a video to show you, a very disturbing video of something that just took place this past Monday, of somebody that would have been yet another victim, another robbery victim. But in this case, the person that would have been a victim actually had a permit to carry. And watch how that stopped that crime.
No. I said no. Get the fuck back. Get the fuck back. Get the fuck back. No, this isn't walking past. That's walking past.
Tonight we have the person that would have been yet another victim of crime in Baltimore City here in our studios to tell us what happened this past Monday night. And that individual's name is David Cochran. Welcome to the show, David.
Thanks for having me, Charles.
So in your own words, tell us what happened that night.
Several nights a week I come home from work from our building and double park in front of my house to unload my van. On one of the trips back out, I saw off to my right someone on a bicycle, and someone off to the left across the street yelled something about asking me for a cigarette, and I told him no, and then he turned and came directly across the street running full steam at me. I put my left hand up and yelled, "Stop, get back," a few other words. I backed up and ready to draw my firearm because he wouldn't stop, and that motion is what finally stopped him. And then he yelled that he was just trying to get past me.
A friend of mine, Adam Meister, he basically almost became a victim like you, and the setup was exactly the same. One guy approached him, there was a guy behind him and two other guys a little bit further out in the distance. But unbeknownst to the people that were trying to rob my friend Adam, they didn't realize that he was an avid jogger, and he literally just outran him. And they couldn't keep up with him, even though they had a gun, but they didn't shoot him, thank God. So do you describe the neighborhood that you're in? Is it a high crime neighborhood?
Yeah, so I live right off a street that's part of what's called the Tri-District area, which was where Southwestern, Southern, and Western District meet. So we run into a lot of difficulties with that setup right there. And it just goes with the city. A lot of times we see a surge with warmer weather, those kind of things. It's gotten worse since the riots.
Yeah, and I'm actually familiar with that area. When I was a chairman of a nonprofit down in Baltimore City for a while, and we would get public safety grants from the federal government to pay for police overtime up in that area. So I know it's a troubled area. So since it is a troubled area, was it hard for you to get a permit to carry a gun?
When I initially applied, I was told by the Maryland State Police that my good and substantial reasons were not good enough. And I then turned my business information in, and they immediately granted me my permit. I had turned that information in Monday night, and on a Thursday my permit arrived in the mail. But they put restrictions on the permit while operating only as a business owner.
And then did you go to the Handgun Review Board, the one that the General Assembly essentially got rid of, unless the governor vetoes HB 1000? And as of today, I don't know what he did, but so would you say that the Handgun Review Board was helpful in your case?
Yeah, so they actually look at the information that you're presenting. My hearing was in December, and it was by their reaction of my application and the reasons that I turned in. To them, there was no reason why they shouldn't remove the restrictions.
So did they remove the restrictions?
They did vote to remove the restrictions, and they've just sent a letter out. I have to wait for the Maryland State Police to decide if they're going to issue the permit or file an appeal on the Handgun Review Board's decision.
And if they file a repeal, where does that appeal go to?
It has to go to a judge. So when you go to the Handgun Review Board, you can just represent yourself. If it has to go to the judge, then you probably should hire a lawyer, which puts a burden on the average citizen.
And from the conversations that we've been having at TV Free Baltimore, it's obvious that the Democrats are trying sophisticated ways to stand between an individual's right to keep and bear arms and the gun that they should be able to get with no restrictions. And one of them is that they make you pay for a background check, fingerprints, if you have to, in your case, hire a lawyer. And it's a sophisticated way to try to deny you your Second Amendment rights. Now, do you feel that way after dealing with the laws that we have to live under in Maryland?
It's pretty obvious if you step back and look at everything that it's a continual effort to keep you from being able to protect and defend yourself. The Monday night there was four men coming at me. Right, I couldn't very well flee. If I tried to run into my house, they would have access to my wife. It puts you in an odd situation, especially when they put the restrictions on your permit. And it becomes, you have to become very wary of whether you're operating in those restrictions or not.
Tell the audience about what kind of ordeal you had to go through to get your permit. Were there fees involved, and did you have to actually get the fingerprints and all that kind of stuff done?
I did not have to take the HQL, which is what you have to get to be able to purchase a handgun, because I have 22 years of active duty service that I retired from. I took the class anyway, and it was a very good class. And then I had to pay for fingerprinting, and then the application process. There's a person-to-person interview. When I went in for that interview, I turned in a flash drive with about 6 to 8 videos that our home cameras picked up of several shootings, and you could hear, we have several recordings of like 20 and 30 gunshots from several blocks away. And the troopers that are involved in deciding whether to issue the permit or not never even looked at the videos I provided.
So they wouldn't provide you a permit because of the crime in your neighborhood?
Right, it's not good enough. You have to have good and what they call good and substantial. But on their website, under who should apply, it says anyone with a reasonable precaution against danger. If you pay attention to the news at all, that's pretty much anybody that lives in Baltimore City.
Exactly. That's what I was going to get ready to say. And the fact that the FBI just came out with a study saying that Baltimore City is #1 in robberies.
Right.
But so the state police don't take the FBI reports into account when deciding if anybody can have a permit to carry?
I don't know. And they've also not been able to give me a reason why they felt the need to put the restrictions on my permit. When I wasn't working, that I posed more of a danger. I'm just not sure about that.
Unbelievable. I mean, the video clearly shows that you would have been a victim if you didn't have the permit to carry and you didn't have a concealed weapon. And you would think that politicians, if they really wanted to truthfully deal with crime in Baltimore City, they would allow people to carry concealed guns as long as they were law-abiding.
Right. Like I said, I had a really good carry conceal class that actually made me second guess whether I wanted to carry or not. They put a lot of emphasis on the big responsibility that it is.
Very interesting indeed. So, for those that are going to try to get a permit to carry, what recommendations would you give them?
Well, you have to have as much documentation to sort of overload their good and substantial reason. Just self-defense is not, that they won't accept that. They've actually told me that just because something happens to one person in a home, it doesn't involve somebody else. And it's a long, drawn-out, confusing process, especially for people in the city, low income, don't have a car. It would be very difficult for someone in that situation to even get the HQL to get a handgun to protect themselves in their home, let alone go through the process of getting a permit.
Let me make sure I understand what you just said. So you're saying that the state police say, look, if somebody breaks into your house and they happen to shoot your wife, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get shot if you're in the house. So she can have a permit, but you can't?
That's basically what they told me.
Oh my God, I mean, that's idiocy.
Yes. Or the Handgun Review Board asked me on one of the assaults on my wife, they asked that if I thought that those criminals would have done that if I would have been there. And I'm like, I have no way to know, but people get assaulted every day in the city.
Now the Democrats, they wanted to pass HB 1000 in order to get rid of this Handgun Review Board because they thought that Handgun Review Board was overruling the state police too much. From your experience, do you think that was in fact the case?
From what I have learned and watched, what the Handgun Review Board in the last year or so was doing was just removing the vague restrictions that they were putting on people's permits. So they weren't just giving everybody a permit. These people were approved by the Maryland State Police to get a permit. They just had restrictions. So.
Right, and those restrictions, we had somebody in from Maryland Show Issue, a retired attorney, and he said that those restrictions can lead to very unpleasant, unintended consequences should somebody have to stop to get gas.
Or you get stopped for running a red light or speeding or something, a minor traffic infringement. It puts you in a weird situation with the officer where they have to determine if you're operating within your restrictions of your permit or not.
Right.
And the Maryland State Police hasn't put any letter out about who determines when you're working and when you're not.
Right.
They said they leave it up to the individual.
Right. Tell the audience what we're talking about before we went on camera here about something that you saw across the street, because the neighborhood that you live in definitely has problems. But explain to me what you saw just recently, because I think if any reasonable person hears that, they're going to understand that people in your neighborhood should have a right to have a concealed weapon.
Right. There's a favorite alley across the street from me on Frederick Avenue that it's a footpath alley that goes behind it to Baltimore Avenue or Baltimore Street off of South Fulton. Again, it's right in the middle of the Tri-District, so it's a convenient spot where people like to deal drugs out of. I'd come home from lunch one day about a month and a half, 2 months ago, and I noticed they were there, so I was on my third story window looking out to get a good description. I think it was on a Friday, and I had heard shots fired. And then several days later in the next week, the same thing happened where I came home for lunch, saw the individuals hanging out on the street. I was getting ready to call 911 to give a description of them. There was more gunshots, and I actually watched one of the guys fall down, the guy that got shot.
That's horrible. And in that kind of environment, I think any reasonable person would say, yes, you have a right to carry a concealed permit if you've got drug dealers across the street killing one another.
To me, that falls under the description of a reasonable precaution against danger.
But would the state police buy that?
No.
And I can tell you from my experience, for those that may be unaware, I was a community activist in Baltimore City for 5.5 years, and they're trying to legalize drugs from the bench, and that's what's leading to all the violence down there. And if you don't believe me, go down to the courthouse and spend a day in the violation of probation hearings. And what that is when somebody, let's say a drug dealer, gets arrested, they're found guilty of dealing drugs, and the judge there before just puts them on probation. Okay, a couple weeks later, they get arrested yet again, and they have to go to a thing called violation of probation hearing for a judge to decide whether or not they should serve the time that they've got backed up to them. So let's say somebody is found guilty of dealing drugs and they're facing 10 years, and the judge just puts them on probation. Well, the judge for the violation of probation hearing can say, I'm going to violate your probation. You have to go serve the 10 years that you were originally charged with. And if you go to these violation of probation hearings, the judges just sit up there and go, case dismissed, case dismissed, case dismissed, case dismissed. They do not want to put these drug dealers in prison. I don't know why. It makes the city extremely dangerous. And at the same time, they're telling the law-abiding, no, you can't have a permit to carry a gun. And not only that, we want to get rid of the handgun review board. So only the bad guys can have guns now. Now, let me ask you this, David. Are you familiar with any of the drug dealers in your neighborhood? The reason I ask that is because when I was a community activist, we got to the point to where we knew their names, we knew their dates of birth, we were calling 911 on them almost every day. I was going down to the Southern District, having meetings with the officers down there. And even when we worked with the police and we got them arrested, got them into court, and let's say we even got a guilty verdict, they wouldn't go to jail.
Right.
So are you that familiar with the drug dealers down there?
No, I think nowadays they move around a lot. They get pushed from one area and just go to pick another area. I had one instance a few years ago with a young man that was in that same alleyway. He eventually came back and threw a brick at me across the street. And the police came in, they found him, and I went to court with him. And he was already on probation, and they put him on double probation.
Yeah, double secret probation. They don't do anything. They don't use the strong arm of the government to get these people off the streets. And the Baltimore City delegation down in Annapolis are nothing but advocates for these criminals, and they do everything within their power to keep them out of prison. And they could care less about the law-abiding, the small business owner, the plumber that lives in these neighborhoods. They don't care about them. They just care about these drug dealers that are literally destroying the city.
Right. I think it was a phrase that someone used on your show recently, where the criminals are the victims and the victims don't matter.
Right. The real victims don't matter. The criminals are the victims. And I cannot tell you that whole mentality that I ran into when I was a community activist down there. There's no way that the city is going to turn around with the current leadership that it has. Right. I mean, 50 plus years of Democratic rule in Baltimore City, and the corruption, the complete incompetence, the pro-criminal attitude. The city is a failed state, and it's going to remain a failed state as long as the voters down there keep voting Democrat.
Right. Well, I think I watched I saw a posting of Governor Hogan not too long ago, where he mentioned something like 60% of the repeat offenders see no serious jail time. Right. And then I think a lot of the police officers' hands are tied. We know several really good police officers, and then there's just some that are sort of disenfranchised with it or afraid to do their job.
Yeah, that's true. And sometimes they're afraid to do their job because they're afraid that they're going to be arrested themselves. But a lot of them get burnt out. They arrest the same guy a dozen times on the same corner doing the same illegal activity, and then it goes to the prosecutors, and the prosecutors will no pros, they call it no pros the charges. If they don't no pros them and they're found guilty, then the judges won't put them away. These guys get on double secret probation. They end up with criminal records that are 30, 40, 50 feet long, and at a certain point, you just look at the whole government down there and it fails. It doesn't, those that are running Baltimore City shouldn't even be operating a snowball stand. I mean, they're so incompetent and corrupt, and just thinking about it gets me frustrated. It's amazing how they just let that city go to hell.
Yeah, we see it every day.
Yeah, it's horrible. And the FBI comes out with these reports, and it's Baltimore's constantly on the national news in an embarrassing way. We have to tolerate the intolerable constantly. Right.
And because the repeat offender criminals, especially the violent crimes, know nothing's going to happen to them, or they're not going to serve any serious time, so they don't care about what could happen to them from the police.
Exactly. And then to hear that people have trouble getting permits to carry, and the things you have to go through, the money you have to spend, the effort you have to put out just to exercise your constitutional right, really your God-given right to protect yourself. It's just it's just unbelievable the way these people think and the legislation that they're passing right now.
Right, and then when you do meet all the criteria and you can legally carry, it's another stressful situation of whether you're doing the right thing all the time.
And let me tell you something. From watching your video, okay, I was thinking to myself, if that guy would have jumped you and you would have shot him, the mainstream media would have painted you as some sort of right-wing gun nut racist that's victimizing yet another poor young black man.
Yes, we would have heard how good a kid he was.
Right, how good of a kid he was, and they would have gotten his 6th grade picture and put it up, and the city prosecutors would have come after you and want to put you in jail. Meanwhile, I'll bet you that guy that was getting ready to jump you, I bet you his criminal record's 20, 30 feet long. And
they were probably just walking along as a group looking for an opportunity.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened with my friend Adam Meister.
It was 10 o'clock at night. He had his hood up. There was a mask covering his mouth and face, and he was running right at me.
Yeah. They were coming for you. Mm-hmm. You were going to be another victim, and they were figuring that you were yet another law-abiding citizen that the Maryland General Assembly had disarmed.
Right. And even after watching the footage, I mean, I've watched it 100 times. I worry did I do the right thing? Did I act the right way?
You definitely did. You would have been a victim, no doubt about it.
I have a friend in California that has told me, if you draw your weapon and don't shoot, they're going to come after you for brandishing the firearm.
I don't know if that's the case in Baltimore
I don't know if here, but so all those things are running through your mind, like it's more than just getting the permit. You have to train and practice and study and learn from people, so you can make sure you're doing the right thing. My wife had told me I made the right decision with what I did, and I told her it wasn't an active decision. It was just what I did from the way we practiced.
Now, let's move on to something else here. Okay, so that situation happened. Tell the audience what the police response has been about actually creating a report about that situation.
The first 2 police officers that responded, we were pretty happy with them. The first responder did question if I had a firearm, and then he wanted to know what happened and the description of them and where they went. And when the second officer arrived, he left to go look for them. The second officer took all my information, and he gave me what they call a citizen police contact sheet. It's not an actual police report. And in this section where it describes the incident, it just said police information. Now, at the time, that night, I think I was pretty shaken up and I wasn't thinking about the police report. But the next day, on Tuesday, I went to the police station to speak to someone about it. I spoke to a detective and he watched the video and he did agree. In fact, every officer that's watched the video does agree that something was going to happen to me. He left a note for the supervisor from Monday night to get a hold of me. That was on Tuesday, and I still hadn't heard anything. Today I got a hold of a sergeant that's supposed to be involved with the Tri-District area, and he got on the ball and talked to the shift commander that was on duty for the day, and she watched the video and said a report needs to be made. So they contacted me and told me to call 911 and explain the situation, that it did happen on Monday, that it wasn't an emergency, but that I did need an officer to come out and write the report. And then the officer arrived for the report. I showed him the video of what happened. He even agreed something was going to happen, but he wasn't sure how to write it up in the report. So he contacted his supervisor, and when he came back after speaking with his supervisor, they said since the man had no visible weapons and he did not actually say anything to me, they could not write the report. When I was contacted by the Tri-District sergeant, he said if they had any problems to have them contact him or the shift commander. So they called them, and it took them a while to decide how they were going to write it up. And they did not write the report as an attempted assault or an attempted robbery. On the reason for the report, it just says police information.
So what you're saying is, as of right now, there is not a police report?
There is a police report with a document number.
Okay.
But it does not say attempted assault, attempted robbery. It just says police information. And I'll have to wait a few days for them to write the report to see what it's stated in there.
And what else have the police done? Because if I was a police officer, I'd say, okay, do we have other robberies in the area that 4 guys participated in? Is there a gang down here doing a string of robberies? I mean, there's no doubt in my mind you weren't the first victim.
Right, that's not just something that you do. I'm not a small or a timid guy, so in my mind, for someone to come running at me like that, there had to be some serious intent behind their actions. Whether in their mind they think it's just a joke or not, it's pretty serious when you come running at somebody at night like that. And I just got the impression from them they were just walking around looking for an opportunity.
Yeah. There's no doubt in my mind you were going to be a victim, and you said that the police officer that looked at the tape thought that something was going to happen.
Right. Every officer that's watched it.
Yeah, and the only thing that stopped it was your gun.
Right. Not firing it, not drawing it, just the presence of it.
Yeah. So guns can deter crime. Guns do deter crime. And we live in a state with some of the toughest gun controls in the union, but yet we have a city that's just infested with crime.
Right. I haven't seen the stats, but I've been told that lawfully concealed carry people are less, as far as stats go, commit less crime than police officers.
Yeah, you definitely want people with permits to carry guns to live in your neighborhood, because, well, think about it, they go through a background check, okay, they're fingerprinted, the whole 9 yards, and I'm sure that some people that attempt to get permit to carry guns are denied, rightfully or wrongly. But if you get a permit to carry a gun in the state of Maryland, you're a law-abiding citizen. They're not just passing those things out like candy at Halloween, believe me.
Like I said, I'm retired military for 22 years. The federal government had no problem issuing me a weapon, and now I'm in my retirement, into my second job, and now I have to jump through hoops to be able to defend myself.
Yeah, that's just unbelievable. Well, unfortunately, we are running out of time. So, is there anything that you want to say in wrapping up?
It's the same thing with every city. You have to be aware of what's going on and pay attention and keep your head off that phone and look at your surroundings and have plans for what's going to happen. Not to live in fear, but just to be ready in case something does happen.
Well, David, we definitely appreciate you coming in here and sharing your story with us and sharing this video. I think there's a lesson to be learned here. And I hope that the politicians out there that voted against the Handgun Review Board will watch this video, because they've done a great disservice to the law-abiding, particularly in Baltimore City. So with that, we're going to leave you tonight, and hopefully Kevin Caldwell will be back for the next episode of Maryland Politics.
You're watching Maryland Politics here on TV Free Baltimore.
We now join the following program already in progress.
Following up with what Paul had talked about earlier, a lot of gun control legislation is feel-good.
Right.
That is, it's not really attacking crime, violence, things that actually have an impact. They're things that are homages. They make politicians check off a box with their constituency, and a lot of these things don't work and don't have any impact.
Yeah. I was just saying, you're talking about the hypocritical nature of politicians and guns and bodyguards. It's not even when they go out of the country. We saw it, we were at the NRA last year and with David Hogg, and brought the Parkland Express tour or whatever it was, and the NRA is bad. And Linda Sarsour, who I'm sure you guys are familiar with, was there with her Nation of Islam bodyguards, and they were all carrying.
Nice.
Which is their right to do, but don't be a hypocrite. You're at a gun control rally. and you're being protected by people with guns, even though there's plenty of police officers there.
Yeah, it's scary.
So,
I mean, you may have noticed this recently. Your new county executive, Calvin Ball,
yes,
canceled the aviation unit for
but
the
reinstated
police.
He
wants
executive
the security
protection.
detail. He wants, because I guess Kittleman had gotten rid of it. He didn't feel like he needed a armed security, but Mr. Ball needs armed security.
More security.
Yeah, you don't need a helicopter to save you, but he does need 3 police officers and around-the-clock drivers.
And to the tune of $400,000.
What county
county
is this?
This is Howard County.
Howard County. Okay,
Yeah.
so for you Howard County listeners, hope that one made it in your ear.
Yeah,
if
I'd
not,
definitely call him.
rewind a little bit and play it again.
Call him and ask him where your aviation unit is going.
Well, and another, not to harp on this, but another issue that when I talked to someone, especially the gentleman, the economist, Mr. Williams, but people don't understand too, especially in this area and especially those in Baltimore, the racial component of making firearms impossible to get for the poor.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
You live, I mean, for these folks who live in some of these neighborhoods who you would need the right to defend yourself, maybe, or your more probability is higher that you may need a weapon to.
Well, just to purchase a firearm after FSA 2013, and we have the HQL. Now the statute doesn't say anything about firing off one round, but the Maryland State Police put that in there when they're drafting up COMAR. So there are no public ranges in Baltimore City.
Yes.
And you can't carry a firearm on public transit.
Right.
So
you have to own a car.
And what would you say the average cost to get that is?
The HQL? It depends on the training. I mean, the HQL itself, you got to get fingerprints, which are $54.50.
Okay.
The HQL is $50, so you're already topping $100. And then your training is just what the market will bear.
Yeah.
So it typically runs $250 to $300.
Okay.
So you're spending close to $500 before you can even purchase.
It's clearly unattainable.
Before the purchase of the
it's
weapon.
totally unattainable
So
for many people.
you're talking about some of the constituents in the poorer sides of these cities. I'm guessing.
It's totally unattainable. They're already priced out of the market.
Yeah.
And to purchase the weapon. So the weapon cost plus all the HQL stuff, they're priced out. Plus if they have children, they have to have a special, safe to put it in. I mean, we're talking over $1,000.
You have to have a bore lock when you go pick up there's another $25 for a bore lock.
Yeah, it's just lunacy. I mean, they know what they're doing too. We've heard some rumors about how often they're willing to give carry permits to people who live in the city, and it's not often.
Wow.
Yeah.
So for you out there listening, if you don't have that kind of income to where you can do it, just them pricing you out of it has denied you of your Second Amendment rights, whether it's on the piece of paper or not. You don't possess that right anymore just by them pricing you out of the market. So call the governor, call the governor, call the governor.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll throw this one up in the air. The First Amendment. I guess the Holbear versus Pope.
That's our guy.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Go ahead. Paul.
Last February 5th, they turned out they're twin brothers, Jeff and Kevin Holbert, and they were out on the bricks in Annapolis like we do every Monday night since 2016 when we started the Patriot Picket, and doing the same thing we've always done. And Sergeant Pope came up to first Kevin and gave him a warning saying, you guys cannot be on the sidewalk anymore. We need you guys to go into Lawyers Mall. Well, we do our homework and we know that to be in Lawyers Mall protesting, you need a permit. We didn't have a permit. We don't get permits. We go out to the public square. So we said, Kevin politely said, no, thank you. So he came back out again when some of the other guys were there, and he said, look, I'm telling you again, you guys have got to move. You got to get off the sidewalk. There's a new policy, a new directive. He didn't produce it, but this is what he's telling us. Said, no, thank you. So he comes a third time and tells the guys to get off the sidewalk, and then had 6 police cars come up and arrested Kevin and Jeff. And Kevin wasn't even holding a sign. He was merely videotaping the rest of the group holding the signs. So he wasn't even part of the protest technically. And so they arrested him and charged him with trespassing, impeding the public access to a government building, just a bunch of nonsense. So
Trespassing on a public.
Right.
Yeah.
You could trespass on public property.
Yeah.
Right.
On a sidewalk.
Oh,
right.
All right.
Okay.
Just Make sure.
So
new rules every day we find out about.
Yeah.
According to Officer Pope, I assume.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Well, they charged him with 2 violations that evening, which they were scratching around while they sat in Annapolis City Jail trying to figure out what to charge him. And then when the news got out on social media, it went nuts. So we were down there Tuesday afternoon. They were kind of doing a scene of the crime interview with Channel 9 from WUSA in D.C. And Chief Wilson and Lieutenant Labs came over and gave them 2 more citations. They doubled down on the citations the next day. So
You got to protect your.
yeah. So anyway, the state's attorney in Anne Arundel County dropped it. I think they were smart enough to see that this was ridiculous and dropped the case. But the brothers and MSI, they're members of MSI, Maryland Shall Issue, filed a federal civil 1983 civil rights case against Sergeant Pope and the Capitol Police and Chief Wilson.
Nice.
So it kind of languished for a year, and just recently the federal judge, the state had a motion to dismiss, which is pretty typical, and the federal judge says no. He denied their motion to dismiss, and specifically they were saying that these 2 officers had qualified immunity because they're state actors. And the federal judge says, without a copy of this new policy, no. What he did do was he took Chief Wilson off 2 of the counts, unlawful arrest, unlawful imprisonment, because he wasn't actually the arresting officer or the one that transported him to Annapolis City Jail. But other than that, he said it's game on and on to discovery. So that's what's happening right now. Wow. So hopefully we're going to find out who. We don't. It's purely speculation, but we don't think that. I mean, we've been doing this every Monday night for 3 years, and last February 5th, you can look it up. It was 25 degrees. There were not a lot of people on the sidewalk in Annapolis.
We take the tunnels in the cold days.
Right. So this made up. Impeding the entrance to a government building is just nonsense. Yeah. So we're wondering. We hadn't had any issues with them prior to that. We haven't had any issues with them since that. Okay. So what changed on that day? What happened and why? And that's what we're hoping this case brings out.
Okay. Mm-hmm. But you bring up an interesting. So according to the courts, and this comes from an old military guy, the commanding officer isn't responsible for what his troops do.
Well, he's still. You're talking about Chief Wilson? Yeah. Oh, on the rest of the counts, there's a lot of counts. Okay. Yeah, they left him. They left him. There's only on 2 that he wasn't personally involved in. Okay. Did the court say, well, we're gonna gotcha. Let the motion to dismiss on that for him alone. But Sergeant Pope is still on all of them. Okay. Chief Wilson is on all but 2.
So, just so I'm understanding this correctly, it seems that the chief and the police department they're putting up the blue line and protecting their own in this case. Would you say, or has anything been taken? Any disciplinary action been taken against Sergeant Pope that you
not that we know of?
Okay,
we have not heard any.
That's not always public information, though. I mean, personnel issues tend to stay private.
Right. So, we don't know. We don't know if this is politically motivated or if somebody just got up on the wrong side of the bed that shift. Gotcha. We don't know, but I'm sure that the attorneys will find out in discovery.
Yeah. Okay. Well, looking forward to it.
Do keep us posted.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, certainly will.
Yeah. That's wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is your one of the tenets of our Constitution is being able to redress your government for grievances in the public square, which is exactly what they're doing.
Well, it almost some point seems to go beyond that. You were standing on a public sidewalk, and it sounds like it just. And from the stories I've heard of this, that you have an officer that exceeded his duty, so to speak, for whatever reason. This is what you're hoping to find out, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Well, we will keep you posted because I hope he will keep us posted, which I'm sure he will.
Absolutely, we will.
Yeah. All right. Now on to the one we talked about. Okay, this is why I said earlier I kept harping on the veto.
Yeah.
And because even if the governor does veto it, we can still end up eating that sandwich, and which brings us to the $15 minimum wage.
That's right.
And I'll tell you what, I'll give Eric a stab at this one first, and we'll swing it around the table.
So like any price control, minimum wage is a price control on the cost of labor. And the central problem with it is that it attacks a very narrow group of wage owners that earn less than in this case, it would be $15. It goes up over the years, so it's not an immediate above the 1010. What it does is drive some people get a benefit. Those that are currently the status quo
1010 in there, yeah.
Getting a benefit. But what it does is come at a cost of those people who would eventually like to be hired, because it decreases the total number of jobs. And the reason that happens is, well, a lot of employers, if they have to hire 2 people to do a job normally, and now you're going to pay them that much more, are going to cut back to 1. But it also strongly incentivizes the very common approach is, well, I'll solve it through technology. So think of fast food. Fast food, you're going to start seeing more self-serve kiosks.
Yes.
So they don't have to pay that machine. And it's a one-time capitalization of the expense. Instead of the problem of trying to pay 2 employees to do this job at a higher rate. So yes, it benefits some people, but at the expense of others, and ultimately drives up the cost of employment for many businesses that are dependent upon a lot of low-wage earners. It's a crucial economic issue.
Absolutely.
And ultimately can cause some of those businesses to go out of business. But really, the government should not be in the business of dictating wages, price controls. These are all things that the free market will allow individual choice to be the determiner of what the value is for my labor. One of the problems is this is sold as this is the minimum amount to live upon.
Yeah.
Well, a minimum wage job, by and large, should never be your wage earner job. These are jobs that, now there are people, unfortunately, that are going to be paid, and that's all they've got.
Yeah.
And so it's tough. It is a tough balancing act. But we will improve the economic outcomes for everybody if we don't try to legislate the economics, because ultimately it's picking some people as winners and other people as losers.
That's a good point.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as I kick it over to you,
Yeah.
you brought up, you just reminded me of one of the things you said, much like the gun control, this seems like a very feel-good bill,
right?
Not any teeth.
That's right. It's the impacts. I mean, first of all, we're going to have compression. So people that are already earning $15 an hour, why are they going to continue to do things like change adult diapers all day long and take care of babies that are on ventilators when they can now simply get a waitressing gig or work at a Subway? Why would they do that? Yeah. They won't do it. So they'll quit, and they'll have the companies that are barely surviving now will have to pay these people even more to accomplish the same thing. Yeah. So it's terrible. And I would say, in terms of the market, you can't cheat the market. If you think you have, you're wrong.
Yeah.
A black market will develop. It'll be a black labor market, just like there's a black market for everything when the government gets involved. Just like those people spent crazy amounts of money to get their kids into really fancy schools.
Yes.
If things become difficult, where there is a will, there will be a way. So people will fire the American employees and hire illegals instead, who will take $5 an hour. Yeah. These things will happen.
Yes.
And so I think we're tricking ourselves, and we're super disingenuous to the people who think that we're doing good things for them and we're going to help make their lives better. Yeah. This will not make their lives better. They will simply get fired, not get hired. Their kids won't get hired. We'll automate more, yes. And we'll ship even more jobs overseas where they pay people $3 a week.
Oh yeah. All right.
I mean, that's what's essentially. People, yes. Out there in the world are so proud right now. Oh, we got $15 minimum wage coming to Maryland. Look how much we love people. And to them, I say, your clothing that you're wearing was made by a child working in a sweatshop in China who earns 30 cents a day. congratulations on loving people.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's really happening. So it's
The
a lot of
hypocrisy of it.
it's hypocrisy, it's virtue signaling, it's wanting to appear as though you're virtuous when you actually don't care about the actual outcome.
Yeah.
And we see this all the time in public policy. The appearance of caring about other people, the appearance of wanting people to succeed,
true.
with absolutely no flesh on those bones. It's very sad. And minimum wages are nothing but a crime against the people that are already at the bottom.
It's an image over substance.
Right.
For sure. For
Yep.
sure. And you bring up a great point. I got to lose Paul. Well, the economist, any economist that is outside a nut house will tell you. Not only, I went the other day to get a hamburger for somebody, and it was, I think I bought a Whopper and something else, and it was almost $11 for the meal.
Yeah.
And
right. Those very same people will not be able to afford the food that they're going to buy because as you increase the minimum wage, you are also increasing cost of goods and services. And they've even discussed tying the minimum wage to inflation in some way, which is really funny since it drives. I mean, seems like a bad idea to me, but I don't know. Maybe I just do math.
And part of the thing, people say, well, it's just a couple dollars an hour. But they're not looking at the cost of the labor rate affects their insurance.
Right.
Yes.
Their liability insurance. My liability insurance is directly generated from the amount of my payroll.
Okay.
My workman's comp is directly generated by the amount of my payroll. So a couple dollars here, then it's also a couple dollars here, and it's a couple dollars in this pot as well, and all those costs have to be passed on.
That's right.
And I agree with Eric. I think that the market should decide. We shouldn't be dictating these rates, because in the business that I'm in, if I paid starting techs, who don't know a whole lot, $10 an hour, I wouldn't have any. I wouldn't have a business. So the market has created the level of where these techs should be, and their pay, and that's fine. And that's how things work. And the good ones, advance, and the ones that are more knowledgeable and actually going out there and, like we say, leaving the cave and killing something, bringing it back, then they get paid a little more than the helpers of those people that go outside the cave. So that's the way the market needs to work. And when the government starts interjecting themselves in there, dictating what I pay my people, it just can't work.
And they're discouraging people from hard work. I mean, they're creating an entire economy that is not based off of merit.
Yes.
And we've done that with the education system, and we've done it with our businesses now. I mean, we're just supposed to reward people endlessly, even if they don't have any self-motivation to continue to grow and improve. Yeah. What kind of economy are we looking for in 20 years if we're not going to have people's pay related to the value that the work they're producing?
I know. And you bring up something too, I don't know if few of you caught on, maybe that also, and maybe this is a roundabout way to do it, I don't know, maybe they're trying to solve the Social Security problem or something. If your wage goes up, the Social Security that you pay goes up.
Exactly.
So maybe they're trying to, maybe you're missing something.
Maybe they're secretly trying to get everybody off of welfare, because guess what? Now people that are going to be making $15 an hour, those people will no longer be eligible based off of today's standards for anything. So maybe that was their secret goal, was to kick all of the poor single women off of welfare. I don't think that was the goal, but that certainly could be an outcome.
Sure. Tackle bits of the Social Security or some other debt, Medicare, or all these.
They're fine with running. Yeah, they like running a deficit.
Sometimes the unemployment rate is tied to entry-level jobs, and you want to be able to create as a dynamic an economy in the entry-level jobs as possible. Well, minimum wage is like a frontal assault on the entry-level job, because an entry-level job, by definition almost, is someone who doesn't really have all of the skills, all of the training, all of the qualifications necessary to produce at a certain level. Yes. But it gets them that early job experience so they can put something on their resume, they've worked a job, they've shown up. And those are the entry-level jobs that will be compressed. There will be fewer and fewer of those because it costs too much to do those entry-level jobs. Yeah. And so I think long-term, those kind of interferences in the private markets will drive dislocations, basically. They're dislocations in the private market.
Absolutely. And we're probably already living many.
We are.
Because I hate almost every time I hear somebody say, well, capitalism doesn't work, or, well, please somebody inform me when we've had a free market economy in the United States of America.
Yeah.
Because it certainly hasn't been for the 50 years that I've been alive.
I know. It's always been a rigged market. They've always been picking winners and losers.
And
I don't know how to get back to it.
And to your point, we all start off there with no experience. I mean, my first job, 10th grade, I washed dishes. And thank goodness that the minimum wage, I think, was $3.25 back then, because I could walk in and they'd give you a job and without even batting an eye. Yeah. Back then, I could quit that one and walk next door and get another one about just as fast.
Right.
What I don't think people realize is, sometimes is, and I know you folks do, but put this out there so it gets heard, is you really are, when we do this, you take away the ability of that poor worker to go sell their labor for less than whatever the market is. Like you said, you were paying those gentlemen. Maybe I don't have that skill, but I come to you and say, you can pay me $4 or $5 an hour, and it gives me some place to start.
Right.
And if we take that away, we take away a weapon that people who are impoverished
can use to get a leg up.
To improve their lives.
This happens in immigrant communities all the time. People come to America and $1 is so much more valuable. Yes. And they're willing to live in multifamily situations. They take public transportation. So they are willing to work for a lot less than what the average American citizen is willing to work for. Yeah. And so this is really what this is the real market at work, right? Yes. They're coming here and saying, I'll work for you for $7 an hour, and I have to say, I'm sorry, I can't hire you, and because of you're just learning English, it's not worth it for me to hire somebody who can't communicate with the customers. And maybe if I could pay, an entry-level wage earning job to them, but they're over the age limit, so I can't.
Yes.
So people are going to lose the opportunities of getting that first job. And that's totally ignored in the conversations in Annapolis, and has been for obviously for years.
You're watching Maryland Politics here on TV Free Baltimore.
I'm Luana Lee, and I'm here to entertain you. Check this out.
I'm here to tell you. I'm here to tell you. I want a man who won't tie my hands. I'm here to tell you.
Welcome, Luana.
Thank you.
Now, what I want to ask is, where did you first get interested, or how did you first get interested in singing and acting?
Well, growing up with my dad, he was in a lot of bands as I was growing up, and then he started acting in different plays, and of course just being around all the music and the singing, I started taking an interest dancing to his songs. So as I grew up, my dad asked if I wanted to go to the recording studio and record one of my first singles. And what 12-year-old's gonna say no? So I recorded Brenda Lee's Sweet Nothings, did my version of it at, again, like I think I was 12 years old when I recorded for the first time. And from there it kind of took off. We started recording music videos, and then as the music videos started to progress, the Adventures of Luana Lee started to come out from that. So acting, I guess, other than in plays in front of the camera, my first experience was through the music videos. Okay. And then again, my dad, Lee Dahl, he created the Adventures of Luana Lee from that. And Mom and Grandpa and Victoria were featured in a couple of the music videos. And from there, we decided that maybe they should be full-length episodes. Dad had me playing a tomboy detective, which I guess then showed my acting skills, because I was not that. But yeah, it became a really fun character to play, and it would be cool in a couple years to do like a reboot of it now that I'm older.
I was going to ask about that too. You're a psychic. So there we go. But first, there were only 4 episodes, is that right? Or were there?
Correct.
And it says there was a movie. Was that a compilation? Or there's a movie that's called Adventures of Luana Lee, the movie.
Right. So it's the movie does show different clips of all 4 episodes, but it shows Luana Lee older, and then she kind of goes back in time to when she was younger.
To save Grandpa.
Yes, to save Grandpa, of course. It's always saving somebody, but...
Then it was Grandpa.
Yeah, then it was Grandpa.
And then why did it stop? You know?
It just kind of ran its course. I was also getting older, so we started filming when I was, 15 going on 16. So it was something easier for me to do, like in between school and on the weekends. And then I started going to college and graduate school, and things just time for me just got harder. And I was getting older, and I wanted to do other projects.
Well, was it popular at the time, or did you get a lot of viewers, or people would say, "Wow, are you Luana Lee?" You know, that kind of thing.
Definitely. I mean, again, with it being also my name, that definitely caught on. But yeah, it had a following, and I think again because it was a movie, and the episodes were for the whole family. So not only did I have adults, especially in the independent film business, interested in it, but then all these kids were watching it too, and creating a fan base of younger kids, teenagers. That was really fun. And I think they could see me as someone, okay, that she's closer to my age, I can relate to her, and even gotten to meet some of my fans, which has been cool.
Good. I was going to say that it seemed like something that would have played well on something like Nickelodeon, you know, like a Nickelodeon series or something.
We definitely tried to go off of the Nickelodeon, Disney Channel vibe. But again, I think that was, they weren't really doing any mystery detective shows. They were doing the things that I, wanted to do. So this kind of had us stand out.
Oh, terrific. But then from that, though, you did more. Other movies.
Yes.
What came after?
So what came after that was The Fixer, and then The Fixer 2, which I appear in both of them as different characters. So The Fixer, I play Luana Lee's biggest fan, Gina Lovelace. So it's myself loving myself, essentially. And then in The Fixer 2, I actually get killed, which was a cool... It was the first time I had been killed on film, which was pretty fun.
It was fun to die, huh?
And the weird part is that Grandpa plays a different character in that film, and he kills me. So that was kind of funny that we made a lot of jokes on set about that. And then from there, we did Rise and Fall in Love, which was our feature-length musical, which was one of my favorite projects to work on. Working with Clear for Takeoff, which was one of my favorite local bands. At the time, I was going to a lot of their shows, and had to ask Dad, can we have them in a movie? So while I'm filming this movie, I'm kind of also like freaking out that,
And you get to sing with them.
Right, exactly. And recorded with them. And so, that was a really fun movie to do. And again, I played more of a character, I guess, that not her personality, but yeah, she wore girlier clothes and could do my hair and makeup a little bit girlier.
So it was more you in that time?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, again, not really her personality. I would never ditch my band for a guy, but
that cute guy. Yeah.
But the way I looked was more me.
More you. And the character, except for what she was doing with ditching the band, was also maybe more you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So again, the singer.
Instead of the tomboy detective.
Right. And, her main goal was to be a singer and be on TV. And that literally was, me. Growing up, I wanted to be a singer and wanted to be on American Idol. So, I pretty much played that role in that film.
Okay. And then, of course, another one was a different kind of film for you. It was Ready for Action.
Yes. That was, again, another... movie. The character that I played, Lolly, she's a part of a detective agency called Sweet Cascades. And even though, again, it was detectives, Lolly just was kind of a little bit more tougher.
Okay. That's some edge.
Yeah. So I had to do a lot of fight scenes in that film, which was a lot of fun. I think I actually really learned how to throw a punch.
Okay.
I thought I knew how to punch before, and then I learned the proper way. And then I was incorporating a lot of my previous gymnastics, cheerleading, and yoga background, which I really love to do. Being able to kind of take another part of me and put that on film and then twist it into a character was really fun.
Well, the thing about that movie was great because I guess it had 4 female leads, and they were all strong women.
Right, and that's me too.
It was like Charlie's Angels +1, It was like
Exactly, yes. So working with all 4 ladies was wonderful. We had a lot of girl power on set.
Great.
And again, just like kind of portraying not your typical gentle housewife, but portraying these tough, strong-minded women.
Now, what about, were you only in, what was it, Day of the Gun?
Yes.
You weren't in One-Eyed Horse, no.
No, Day of the Gun,
Day of the Gun.
Which again produced and directed by Wayne Shipley. When he asked me to be in that film, I was really excited again because there's just little steps we're breaking away from Luana Lee, who was just the one character that I had the opportunity to play at the time. And for Day of the Gun, he said, to be in this, you're going to have to learn how to ride horses because I want you riding Gracie the mule. And never really was interested in riding horses. I wasn't a horse girl growing up. All my friends wanted to own a pony. That wasn't me. And Wayne ended up training me and teaching me how to ride and gave me my first pair of cowboy boots, and I was out riding his horses to train on. And then I met Gracie and obviously learned how to ride on her as well. And one of the cool things, so Gracie is trained to do tricks and things like that, but he said, I want you to also be doing tricks with Gracie. So from that, I actually was able again to use some of my gymnastic skills with Gracie, running and hopping on her, climbing up on her back and doing different tricks, sliding off. So yeah, it was a really fun role to play. And then of course his sets on his films are just always huge. So, being on a huge set with a ton of different cast members, and then being able to pretty much perform mine and Gracie's show in front of not only the cameras, but in front of the rest of the cast was really cool.
Well, what was your part in that film?
So I play Sam, and she, again, was a member of the town.
Okay. So she was just a town person? Okay. And yeah, you got to be around all those great people. From that, though, now do you like horses? Do you ride?
I haven't ridden since. I don't own a horse. So, but it definitely opened my eyes, and I'm like, okay, they're actually really beautiful animals and creatures, and very gentle. I think that was, I feel like a part of it was the fear of being around them. They were so big, and being able to be around them and know and learn that they're actually really beautiful and gentle.
Because you don't see many people, riding a mule.
Right.
So that's a specialty that you have.
Exactly. And especially this mule. This mule is just so talented. They have got her trained, and she can do anything. It's almost like a dog.
Wow.
Well, even better, because again, some of the tricks that she can do. So
amazing. And let's see, is there any other films you've done since, or no?
I think
that's it.
Yeah, I think we covered all of them.
Okay. Now, I know before we get into the one that's coming up. Now, you sort of mentioned it, but will there be like a revisit to Luana Lee, the adult, detective or whatever she's going to be?
I would like to do one. So if we get everybody else on board, I'm about it. I think that would be a really cool thing to do, especially as we're all older, and I'm sure we can come up with a story.
Because the big, thing that's tough is for somebody who's been a child or teenage actor or actress to make that transition to an adult actor or actress and being accepted by the audience.
Right.
In this case, you have a following who still looks at the teenage Luana Lee.
Right.
To whether they would accept you in your 20s now, you know.
It would, exactly. It would be something that we could play with.
Right.
But I think that was a big part of doing a couple of these other films
Right.
and playing these other characters too, to kind of, you know, not only give me more of a background in my acting, but to see if my fans and followers would still follow
Right.
if I changed characters or played different roles.
Well, another one I understand will be an adult role is The Fixer 3.
Yes.
With the return of Brian St. August as the Fixer.
And I'm very excited to work with him again. I've actually never worked, I guess, face to face with him in a Fixer film before, so this will be really cool. Obviously, I've worked with him in other shows and other movies,
Right.
but this will be kind of like one-on-one. And yes, I play a bounty hunter.
Oh, see, that's different.
A little different, yep.
Again, a little more
So,
badass.
Exactly, and I think, yeah, so we'll see. We'll see how this goes.
That'll be interesting.
Clearly, I think I like playing the tougher
You do? Okay.
girl roles.
So that's later this year, I guess you're going to be filming.
Late summer, early fall, yes.
Okay, so everybody look for that one. You know, that's going to be another good one. And then you've been keeping up, have you, with your singing? Or?
Yes, so I'm currently in the recording studio finishing up a song originally done by Brenda Lee, I Want to Be Wanted, and just need to go in for a couple more times to finish that song up. So, and again, it was a song that as I matured and as I got older, I really wanted to redo or do my own version of that song. It's got a more mature sounding feel and vibe to it. So I'm excited to finish that up, but obviously still staying to my roots of Brenda Lee.
Okay. So what types or genre music you like to sing?
Like to sing, I would have to say pop and kind of pop country a little bit. I never considered myself a country singer, but the more I've heard my voice recorded and also hearing feedback from fans and friends and family, they say that I kind of have that pop country vibe to my voice. So that's, I guess, the way I would put it. A little bit of rock too.
Okay.
But yeah, definitely the pop country.
Okay. Now, have you ever had any training in singing?
Yes. Voice lessons. Obviously, I feel like every time I go to the recording studio, I end up getting voice lessons from Bill Pratt, which is amazing. And also had voice lessons my first year in college, I think.
Okay.
From CCBC.
So you don't record with Steve Rifkin?
I have actually once,
Okay.
but I would love to record with him more. We were working on a project. Unfortunately, the project is no longer happening, but I have recorded at his studio and with him. But yeah, the project is no longer continuing.
Did you have any acting classes or training or things?
Yes. Again, in college, did a couple acting courses, and I actually am a theater minor from my undergrad. So a couple different acting courses with that, also some costumes, some directing back, we had to take a couple classes in each thing. But the most, obviously, that I did was the acting classes at both, again, my community college and my undergrad.
But then did you get into plays there at college? Or?
Did a couple plays. We did Our Town. That was one play that I did at CCBC.
Okay.
And then in high school and middle school also did some plays. So I guess my acting background before Adventures of Luana Lee were plays in middle school and high school. And then did Adventures of Luana Lee, and then I realized that acting was something that I really enjoyed and wanted to continue to pursue it, and which led me to take the classes in college.
Now, would you think you'd be interested in doing musical theater?
Again, we did a couple musicals I think most of the plays that I had done in high school were musicals, so I loved that. Not enough to pursue it.
Okay. You don't love it that much. Okay.
It's one thing that I did learn from taking all the acting classes and from being on stage and performing a play and being behind the camera is that acting on stage and acting behind the camera are two different worlds. And I love both of them because you do get different feelings from doing both. I love the adrenaline from acting on the stage. But acting behind the camera is more where my heart is.
Oh. Okay.
I like being on a set, being behind the camera. When the camera shuts off, goofing around with the castmates. The blooper reels are always my favorite to watch.
Okay,
so I
great.
think it's just a lot more fun on the set of a film.
So at some point then when you were younger, did you consider a career in acting or singing?
Definitely did. Wanted to be a singer full-time or an actress full-time, and something along the way kept pulling me to needing to help people more than acting and singing may do. Obviously acting and singing could be very therapeutic for people to watch and obviously for me to be doing, but something was pulling me in a different direction as well. And I just had this need to help other people, and I found myself always being the friend giving advice to other of my friends, and knowing that in case acting and singing didn't provide enough money for me to have a back, something to build financially off of. So then that's why I studied psychology.
Okay.
And now have my master's in social work,
Which is
and
terrific,
I am an individual therapist now. So
Well, that's terrific. It really
Yes.
is. But how do you then now balance the two? Or are you going to have that
Good
challenge or
question.
problem of balancing the two?
So if you were my client, I could tell you how to do this, but I do not listen to myself, to my own advice. It is challenging. It's challenging to balance all of my hobbies and careers. So I think now that I actually do have a full-time, pretty much a 9 to 5, it's made things a little bit easier than when I was in school and I was balancing work, classes, hobbies, social life. It was a lot harder. So my schedule's a little nicer, I guess more free.
Okay.
Very slightly.
Okay.
So yeah, there's a lot more time after, knowing that I'm going to get off at a specific time, and then
Right.
having the evenings to do things, having the weekends to do things. However, I do like to plan months ahead. So
Okay.
as long as I plan, I'm fine.
Because most people, you grew up, in independent filmmaking, and most independent filmmakers have day jobs anyway, just like
Right.
you do, and usually film on weekends.
Exactly.
So it's the same thing.
And a couple of the actors and actresses that I know have actually gone in the same direction that I'm in, either with psychology or social work or therapy. So as I was growing up and going to school and meeting them and seeing, okay, well, they can do both. Why can't
Right. Right.
I? And just knowing that, I can kind of fulfill all of my passions.
There you
But yeah,
go.
just need my planner.
Now, what about the future? You talk about trying to hold it all together. Well, do you have some future goals in career or entertainment or?
Yeah, always try to set my goals. So career-wise, as for right now, I really enjoy doing individual therapy. Would love to start group therapy at the organization that I work with, kind of combining the yoga, self-care, and mindfulness, but in a group therapy format. Again, reaching out more of my clients, because right now a lot of my yoga is just being taught to my students at the studio.
Okay.
I would love to bring all these techniques to my clients because they could really benefit from it. And then as for singing, like I said, I want to finish my song and hopefully record a lot more.
Get us some CDs, more CDs.
Exactly, more CDs. I guess they're still around. CDs or whatever, Spotify. And who knows, maybe even do a live performance, because I haven't done one of those in a long time. So that would be really fun to actually perform some of my songs. And
Like do a concert.
Yeah, or whatever, just be featured.
Well, you can have a lot of things that are like community fairs. Hey, there's
Exactly.
there's a Catonsville fair and all those things that
Exactly.
get you up there for
So
a set.
It's been a while since I've done any kind of festival and performed on a stage singing wise. So that would be a goal for the future. And then of course continue with the acting too as much as I can. Obviously, The Fixer 3 is the next thing that I'll be doing, but who knows, maybe another Wayne Shipley film or any other independent film.
There's a lot of people out here that are directors, and if you let yourself be known that you're out there and you're available, maybe they'll have a part for you.
Exactly. Yeah, but for the past couple of years, my main focus was just getting my master's and getting a job in social work or in as being a therapist. So now that's, knock on wood, hopefully in stone for the next couple years, I have more time and more energy to focus in these other directions.
And you're going to keep with the counseling as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That's definite. Just the joy that brings me again to help other people. But if I can combine everything all together, then I will definitely do that. I've played some of my songs during my yoga playlist. So I don't know if my students know it's me singing, but they're doing yoga to me singing.
There you go. Well, I was gonna say, they don't do it so much anymore, but when I was on like one of my internships, they still had what they called psychodrama for psych patients. So, so it's recreating things or trauma from their life or whatever it would be, and they're acting it out. And it's like a group session because everybody else who's, in that group also participate or watch or help. And so that was a therapeutic use of drama with patients. And so that's maybe something you can consider, so you want to kind of incorporate everything.
Exactly. Yep. And then there's, of course, music therapy too.
Music therapy, right.
I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it. And like I said, I've already, my brain never stops. So I'm always thinking of the next step and the next goal. So
good. Well, first of all, it was going to be interesting to say that, you work for Wayne Shipley, but what's it like being directed by your father? Because when you were a kid, you also had to go home with him after the shoot was over.
No, it was great. I think it actually helped because obviously I'm comfortable around him, and taking direction from him on a film set is not the same as him telling me to clean my room.
Okay.
I think him and I both, I feel, did a really good job of separating that,
Yeah. The
dad and daughter
professional
stay at home.
Right.
But on the set, I'm your director, you're the actress. So
that's great.
Again, he wouldn't talk to me like, okay, now you have to do this, and I wouldn't roll my eyes. Well, maybe I did a couple of times, but
well, you did your best to keep the two separate.
Exactly.
Director, actress, daughter, father.
It was like we had to just, put on the roles of director and actress when we left the house, and then I would have to then become the character then too. So
there you go.
Boundaries and self-care. There we go
She's
again.
back with it again. Wow, you just have it all together. Now, if you could, just let people know how to get in contact with you, or how to get in contact and get all the Luana Lee stuff and everything else, and Lead All Productions, and just look in that monitor and give folks your contact info.
You can find me at luanalee.com or at the Adventures of Luana Lee's Facebook page. There you'll find pictures, videos, and links to purchase my movies, and maybe even message me.
It was a lot of fun to have you.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. And folks, there we are. That's the end of another edition here of the Bit of Paul Stefan Show. And wait until next time. We're having some more interesting people stopping by. Good night.
You're watching The Paul Stefan Show on TV Free Baltimore. You're watching The Paul Stefan Show on TV Free Baltimore.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of our program. And today, our guest is a multifaceted, multi-talented woman. We will only have a brief time to go over some of her accomplishments, but she's done modeling, acting, has been a trainer and a fashionista kind of consultant, image consultant to people. It goes on and on. A host of some shows like Click on This, and we'll talk about that. Just can't wait to get into this interview. And our guest today is Neva Kraus.
Hi, Paul.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
All right. Now, the first thing I wanted to really focus on is your standardized patient program at Hopkins. And explain first to people what that is.
So, standardized patient work consists of, or actually my job is to hire actors and non-actors who portray patients so that medical students, medical learners can practice taking a history and doing clinical exams like a heart and lung exam, that type of thing, in order to educate and assess medical learners.
How did you find out about it? Because when I heard about you doing this, I said, I haven't heard of this, but it sounds wonderful, and I know it happens in other countries and in all over our country.
It does.
But how is it that you stumbled over it initially?
Interestingly, simulation is hot. And I've been with Hopkins for over 20 years.
Wow.
So when I started, there were some downtimes, but now we're busy all the time, and we keep getting new clients each and every year and repeat clients who want to do more. So how did I hear about it? Well, way back when, Jack Gerbes, who is the film director, Maryland film director, had a hotline that actors called in order to find out what jobs were happening in Maryland. So I called it one day when I had moved back to Maryland, and Johns Hopkins, interestingly, was looking for actors to play standardized patients. I hadn't heard of that. I love science and I love drama, and so I thought this would be the perfect marriage. So I went in, and my daughter went in to audition. So it was an auditioning process. She was 3 at the time.
Wow.
And now she's 23, so that was some time ago.
Yeah.
We both got hired.
Terrific.
And we started working right away, both of us. And that was back in 1998 that we started working. And back then, Hopkins in the Mid-Atlantic region was probably the only institution that had a standardized patient program. And so all the other institutions like Howard, University of Maryland, Uniformed Services, Georgetown, George Washington would send their students to Hopkins to have the standardized patient experience, whether it was educational or assessment. And so Shauna, my daughter, and I, Shauna played herself at 3, just a child, and I played her mother, of course. We were given a case, and I learned it, and Shauna at 3 could comprehend what she did, and we did many cases. She would get paid and I would get paid. And
terrific.
So it was a great start to Shauna, who's now doing it.
She's still doing it?
She still works for me. She's been doing it throughout her life, and she
amazing.
Currently works a lot as a standardized patient for Maryland, for Towson University, and for Hopkins. So I'm really proud of her. She's done it most of her life. She's also pursuing acting and modeling.
Oh, terrific.
But that's when we both got started. They found out I could cry on cue, so I got all the end-of-life cases.
That's an interesting skill. You learned how to cry on cue.
I had done theater prior to that. I was a part of a theater that toured around the country.
Oh, that's interesting.
Based in California. I lived in Hollywood briefly, didn't like it. It was too toxic.
Oh, okay.
And acting wasn't the only thing I wanted to do. But this theater company, repertoire theater company that I traveled with throughout the country, that's when I learned that I could cry on cue, because we did a lot of plays that included talking down somebody from a ledge. And I was the person to do that. And I realized I could cry. I'm that empathic that I could cry on cue. That's when I honed that skill. And so I brought that to Hopkins, and they they liked it,
There you
and
go.
I got a lot of work. And I still do that today. And also I'm in charge of those events, which is nice to be on the other end of it.
Well, I understand for 10 years or so you've been a trainer, I guess.
An educator.
Educator.
Yes. I'm a specialist. I'm a
specialist,
standardized patient training education specialist.
Because I would say, if an actor or a non-actor wants to be a standardized patient, what kind of skills or talents do they need to have?
Oh, they need to have many skills. So it's not just closed to actors. It's open to anybody. You have to be 18 and up. And we're extremely selective on who we pick. There's an auditioning process, sort of a checking out your history kind of thing, background check kind of thing. Hopkins does an official background check, but we do one also before we invite anybody in. So you asked me, what do I look for? Somebody who's well adjusted more than anything.
Okay.
So I have to say that some actors are not well adjusted, so we don't want them. We get rid of them up front.
So you have non-actors who can probably
Absolutely,
do
who
the
become
job.
actors, because I've taught acting for many years. So I teach them a little acting 101.
Okay.
One-on-one and 101.
Both.
So somebody who takes direction well, somebody who gets the program, because it's not just acting, it's also observing as well. So as you're in character, you're observing what the medical learner is saying and what they're doing and how it feels to be their patient. Because after the encounter, you have to go and fill out a checklist based on history items taken or asked for, as well as physical exam maneuvers, if the physical exam is a part of the encounter, what they did. So you're filling out, as a standardized patient, a checklist and giving them a grade. So you're responsible for that aspect, as well as filling out another checklist concerning interpersonal skills, so how they communicate with you. And it's based on a 5-point Likert scale. There might be 10 items. So you're required to be in character and observe and give logical verbal feedback, helpful feedback after the encounter many times. So not just written, but also verbal as well.
Because I was going to say, from what I understand, because it's for training purposes for the doctors, not just doctors, we'll say interns, residents, fellows, maybe
medical students. We do nursing students. I know that social workers undergo it. Chaplains. We do a lot of interprofessional simulations. So many types of learners, and we create videos. I also, another aspect of my job at Hopkins is to write or create a script, a storyboard, and help produce videos, direct as well.
Well, I thought it was great because it also helps, one of the things will help young medical professionals with their bedside manner, if you would call it. It's about communication, not just I can diagnose that illness by looking at this patient.
And also clinical skills like physical exam maneuvers. Are they doing it properly? So standardized patients are trained to these cases, so they become highly medically literate when it comes to assessing the students.
Well, that's interesting, and I'd say that for them, the idea is for who's the patient, the standardized patient it has to be as realistic as possible.
Correct. That's my goal, is to create such a realistic, safe environment where medical learners can try new things and make mistakes. And the worst they get is verbal feedback. When you did this, I felt this way. I would have preferred this other thing. And so sometimes they get a do-over, but other times it's reflected in a grade.
So so we're saying that you're maybe not just, as I thought I heard you say, grading the performance of a standardized patient, but aren't somehow these young medical professionals are also being graded in a way, aren't they?
Yeah. So I'm not really grading the standardized patients, though we do have video monitors doing a quality control type, thing. But it's all about the medical students, and that's one thing. It's not about I'm thinking about this, it's not about the actor at all, or the person, the standardized patient. They're in a supporting role. And sometimes actors don't take this too well or don't get it. You're in a supporting role. You're there for the medical learner. It's all about them. They're the star. You're there to support them and to help educate them and help them learn about themselves and their weaknesses and strengths. So what the standardized patients, after being trained from 3 to 6 hours, depending on the complexity of the case, not just by me or another educator, but also by a faculty member. Because I don't have a medical background, though I've been at Hopkins for 20 years, so I'm slowly earning my medical degree. I should have it by 105.
We'll call you Dr. Krause.
There you go. I played a doctor on TV and in videos.
Okay, okay.
I would not want to be one.
Okay, or a nurse or something.
Exactly.
Right.
So the standardized patients are responsible for grading on the history checklist. So it's a done or not done, and each done gets a point. Physical exam, so they have to memorize that. That's their script, what they're supposed to say in response to a question. If the student doesn't ask a particular question, the SP can't volunteer it if it's on a checklist. That's so the faculty can determine what the student is lacking in their knowledge.
Well, it seemed to me, though, even though you say it's more about the medical professional than the standardized patient, it would seem like it would still be a great kind of learning tool for actors.
It is. Oh, it's a great place to hone your acting skills and get paid. We pay $20 an hour now.
That's pretty good.
And for end-of-life cases, it can be 25, 30, 35, even 45 an hour. And for videos, it's much, much more than that.
Well, it's not bad then for people.
It's not, no, exactly. And I know there is a body of actors who do this practically full-time, and they work for as many institutions as they can.
Okay. Well, I was going to say, since you had started in acting, I was going to say, how has this experience enhanced your acting skills?
Oh, I mean, so you're practicing all the time, and it's I guess, if you've never been to Spotlighters, then you don't know intimate theater. But if you have, then that's really intimate theater. This is even more intimate, because sometimes you don't just have the learner in the room, and it's a real physical exam room.
Okay.
An exam room. But you might have like people sitting around observing, faculty members, other learners, and they're watching this, and you're blocking them out while you're focusing on the person in the hot seat.
Right.
And so it's really intimate. And so, like they say, the camera doesn't lie. Well, the person who's not an actor sitting in front of you, if you're not into it, they won't be into it either. So your job as an actor is not to convince your audience that what you're feeling and doing is real, but you have to convince yourself. Because if you're convinced, then everyone else will be. So you're on the spot. The person in front of you is not an actor. They're counting on you to get them where they need to go to learn.
Right.
So you're responsible for being as realistic. Even if they're not into it in the beginning, they're nervous. They're like, this is fake. If you stay in character and you perhaps emote, you can evoke their empathy, and they get into it and they think, this is real. So though they know it's fake, when they leave, they swear it was real. That's our goal. And so it's a great learning experience for actors to really hone their skills, to be able to call up any emotion in the moment and react in the moment.
Well, I think if you could, a young actor could do that, then they can do anything. They can do theater, they can do movies, because the thing with movies is forget the cameras in your face.
Exactly. We do have cameras. They're in the ceiling, so we have two. Most things are recorded so that the student can review how he or she or they performed. Because they might say, well, I never did that, and they sit down with a faculty member and watch the video. I did that, and look how horrible I did. I need to do something different, correct that behavior or thing that I say, or idiosyncrasy. So most things are recorded, and we collect all the data from the checklist, so they do receive a grade. So it's a great experience, not just for the medical learners, but for the actors who can hone their skills. And you're right, if you can handle this intimate, situation where you have to create a believable situation, you can handle just about any kind of acting for sure, or life.
Yes.
Acting skills come in handy in real life, believe it or not.
Okay, and I have a question related to that. So you're a psychic too, on top of your many other talents. Now, of course, acting and modeling came very early in your life. What was it? Came first, modeling?
Modeling. I was 6. My grandmother thought it was a good idea to get me involved in some modeling classes, and I started doing runway and a little bit of print when I was 6.
Wow.
And she was a fashionista.
So quite
She's
early.
still alive, by the way. She's
Oh, really?
96.
That's a good age. Yeah.
And so, yes, I have her to thank.
And then acting came
And
later.
then acting came, when I was 11. I won my first acting award at
Really?
11 years
At 11
old.
years old?
I felt like I was winning. I'm sorry, I hit the mic. I felt like I was winning an Oscar at 11 years old. And I thought, I like this. This is fun.
What kind of award was it then? Or what
It was a
for?
little acting. I won Best Actor.
Oh, you were Best Actor
I was
already
Best
at 11.
Actor, and it was a cute
Amazing.
little nice award. It was really well done.
Yeah, and you've
So-
done all kinds of modeling, right?
I have. I've done a little bit of everything. Yes, I still model, and I have a modeling gig next week.
Wow.
Where I'm actually going to be photographed and become a figurine for a game.
Oh,
for
wow.
a board game. Now, I've
Terrific.
never done that before, so that's going to
That's
be
different,
cool.
yeah.
I'm going to be like a warrior ninja.
Oh, wow.
My daughter is working on the same project,
Oh, she
so
is.
it's a mother-daughter thing.
You'll both
so
be figures on this
we're
game.
both going to be figures, so we have to buy this game, or at least be given it, right? We should be given it.
They should give you one.
Okay, and we can have our little
Your little
figurine,
selves, your little
selves.
avatars or
That's
whatever
right.
they are.
How cool is that, right?
That's pretty good. Yes, you're immortalized. Talking about being,
that's my legacy.
Your eternal goddess thing. There it is.
Right.
But the other thing with that, you made an interesting quote that I wanted you to expand a little bit because you said at one point, modeling is acting without words.
Correct. Absolutely. People think, oh, modeling is easy. I can do it. No, you can't without some training, without some thought and practice. So it is. Modeling is essentially acting because acting requires whatever you're thinking comes out through your eyes. You can't, think of one thing and produce something else in your eyes. It doesn't work. So modeling is all about capturing that energy in a still life. And so it's the eyes or it's the posture that, sort of dictates what you're sending to the viewer. So
Or the
it
walk.
is. Or the walk, right? On a runway, it's all about the attitude. Yeah, and so practicing knowing your good angles, it's all about the angles. It's geometry, right? Just like dance is geometry. It's all about the angles and the view and what the energy says. So it's not as easy as one who's never done it thinks.
Well, that's interesting because a lot of people think, especially with fashion runway stuff most people see, it's about the clothes, not about the individual models.
It really
unless they're
is about the
supermodels.
clothes. There is that, but it really, you are there. You are secondary to the outfit. It's all about presenting the outfit.
But the idea is for you to sell that outfit.
That's right, with your confidence and the way you walk.
Right.
There is a certain walk that you do on the runway.
And understand you have your own particular walk.
I do, so I've been told. But so it's a combination of doing it so young and dance.
Oh, we forgot about that. You're
Yes,
also
that's
well
right.
trained in dance.
Yes, I have to thank Miss Paula Lynn
Down
and
the
her
street,
mom,
folks,
Cynthia Krug-Wagner.
she was taught.
Yes, I'm so grateful.
That's the
for
Cynthia
classes.
Krug-Wagner Dance School.
That's right. Many classes. I love dance as a passion. I love it so much. And just went to an 80s party 2 weekends ago, and people were like, "Oh my God, you're a dancing machine!" I'm like, "Yes, I love dancing."
Do you have a particular style of dancing?
I
you like
love
best,
Bob
or just-
Fosse is one of my favorite choreographers
Really?
of all time. I love jazz, though I've studied tap and ballet.
So to watch maybe Fosse Verdon, for example, that's on TV. I don't know if you've
I
seen
have
that.
not watched that. I'm aware.
With Sam Rockwell.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that would be something to see. Now, let's get into something else.
Okay.
Click on this.
Click
And I
on
know
this.
We would
yes.
be remiss if we didn't
No,
mention
we have to mention click on this.
Now, how did you find out about that? I know Elena founded this 10 years ago.
Yes.
And how early did you come into the process?
So guess what? Elena's one of my standardized patients.
She is too?
She is too.
Okay.
There are so many, as well as Brian St. August.
Yes, Brian is, I know.
Among many others. Anyway, a while back, because I'm naturally curious. I'm like, I would be a great host because I want to know stuff and I could ask people stuff. And in a normal conversation, I'm always the one to ask questions. I'm just naturally curious. So I had that in the back of my mind. So I met Elena probably about 10 years ago. She and her dad became standardized patients.
Oh, Dad too?
Dad too. But Elena remains.
Okay.
And so once I got to know Elena and all the creative things she was involved in, I'm like, this is such a brilliant creative person. I started to want to, help her in any way I could. And started to do that, and she kept asking me to be a host, and it just never panned out. I don't know how long ago that was the first time she asked me, but it's been some time. Yeah. Well, I actually got started, I think, back 2016.
Oh, okay. So 3 years ago. Yeah.
Or 15 or 16,
okay.
Something like that. It was pre-Preakness, and there was, on the Preakness ground, there was the Black-Eyed Susan.
Yeah. Black-Eyed Susan is the race Friday, and the Preakness runs on Saturday. It wasn't that.
It was a wine tasting thing.
Oh, okay.
But it had to do with the Preakness.
Fine. Preakness week.
So we went there, and that was my first time interviewing. It was, I think it was just me and Elaine and the camera guy. And then later that night, the Baltimore rock band Ravens were playing at live downtown. And so Johnny Alonso and I hosted that. And so that was my very first time. And now we've gone to Utah twice. I did Sundance with her. That was such an honor. My very first red carpet. Wow. I did people like Jim Gaffigan, John Lithgow, Demi Moore.
Sure. Ed Helms.
And I was honored. What fun, what a rush that was. And to stay in Park City during Sundance, that was just an amazing experience.
Amazing but cold. Yeah.
It wasn't all that cold, actually. No. I mean, I came prepared. I had my snow jacket and stuff.
And Tribeca's coming up.
Tribeca's coming up. And so we did the Annapolis Film Festival a couple of weeks ago. We just did the DC Web Fest.
Yeah.
And I know I missed, there's so many things that we've done that I can't keep track of. I
want to know, again, before we're going off on this, let people out there who don't know, tell them what Click on This is and where they can find it.
So Click on This is a lifestyle sort of magazine show that you might watch, like something on television at 7:30 p.m. They come on, like Edition, whatever.
Entertainment Tonight.
Yes.
Sort of thing.
So, but we're a web series. We're an international award-winning web series. Elena's won multiple awards. Johnny has won an award for Best Host. We travel around to different events. We cover, like, we did this rock music venue, Warped Tour. We did the final Warped Tour, and that was a lot of fun. My daughter dates one of the musicians, so that was an in. But we did that. So we do musicians. We do different kind of events. We do other web festivals. Well. We do film festivals, but any kind of like major event or like celebrities and sports figures and just interesting things. So you can find us at www.clickonthisTV or clickonthisshow.com.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have an Instagram page. Please like us on our Instagram page. Find us there. You'll see all the great and cool activities that we're doing.
Terrific. Now, another thing you're involved in is the Baltimore Next Media Web Fest, which is this year is its third year. Tell folks what that is and your role in that festival.
So I'm a co-founder along with Elena Moscat with this web festival. It's a dream that Elena has had for some time. And so we did our very first one 2 years ago. So 2019 is our third one. And this year it's going to be even bigger and better.
Wow.
So it's going to start October 31st and run through November the 3rd.
So Halloween.
We're going to have, and that night we're going to showcase horror films, horror web series. So we not only do web series, but we also do short films.
Oh, great.
And VR.
Oh, good.
And documentaries. So we're going to highlight the horror that night, and people are going to come in costume.
That'll be
fun, right? We also have celebrities. We have coming again Scott Zachrin, who created the very first web series back in the early 90s.
Wow.
Elena Moscat was number 2.
Yes.
She is credited with creating the very first scripted web series.
Right.
So
she's a pioneer.
She is a pioneer, so you have to latch on to these extraordinary people. And
Exactly.
yes, so
And then,
that's
of
what I've
course,
done.
if anybody wants to enter, how can they enter their web series onto your festival?
So we are located on Film Freeway, so they can find us at
Okay.
filmfreeway.com.
Okay, great.
And they'll see the B&M Web Fest.
Gotcha.
Yes, and so what was I going to say? Last year we had people as far away as Australia come to Baltimore for the very first time.
They actually came to Baltimore.
They came. I know. They're like, we love Baltimore. They
loved it.
didn't see the media then.
Talk about 3/4 of the way around the world to come here.
They actually came and loved Baltimore. We had people
Terrific.
from Toronto who came to Baltimore for the first time and loved it. So we have this great little following.
Terrific.
And it grows bigger and bigger every year.
Good.
So we're going to have people from all over the world,
Terrific.
perhaps from Spain.
Wow.
This next time. So it's amazing to meet these international filmmakers, web series makers, creative geniuses that come all the way from their hometown to Baltimore. And they love the city. They love Charm City. So we're promoting Baltimore, in effect, to
Terrific.
the world. We're giving them a better view of Baltimore than the media gives.
I mean, there are other people. I mean, this is again sort of like the standardized patient program that not a lot of people have heard of. This new Baltimore.
That's right. Yes,
Next
we're going to
Media
do it. We're going to
what-
fix
website.
that this year. We
Yeah,
have
good.
some sponsors,
Good.
so they're going to hear about us.
That's good.
For sure.
Because
We've
it
gotten
should be known.
international people. We're going to get more local people for
Well,
2019.
Terrific. In fact, we'll be part of that. I
Thank
can
you.
guarantee that.
That's awesome. We
As
look
well
forward
as
to that.
entering, and probably we'll also cover it.
Excellent. Excellent.
Because we'll want to
We'd
meet
like that.
filmmakers, you know.
Excellent.
Because one of our goals here is to have a program where we show short films and then
Excellent.
interview the director and have it almost like, you know, a weekly or a monthly thing where we do that as part of
great.
what we're doing. Because we've done several of those already, but we want to make it a
Great.
regular feature.
That's amazing.
So that's one thing. Now, are there any other of your many aspects of your creative self you want to mention in the short time we have left?
Sure. So one of my goals for 2019 is to create a documentary.
Oh.
I have a story I want to tell.
And is anything you can share right now?
Maybe next time.
Okay.
But it sort of relates to my 20 years of doing standardized patient work at Hopkins. It relates
interesting.
closely to that.
Oh, it'd be interesting.
But I have a story to tell, and so my goal is to at least get it started. I have things written down. I need to start interviewing people, but I want to do a documentary, at least get it started this year.
Terrific.
So that's one of my goals.
Now, one thing, I guess the final kind of question for you is to say, with all these jobs you have, at one time you told me you have at least
Oh, and I have another job too. My dream job.
You have at
they're
least
all
5
dreamy.
jobs, you've
Yes,
told
where
me.
I travel around the country, and even
You
into
travel in the
Canada.
country
I travel the
and
country.
Canada.
Gone to Honolulu.
Doing what?
Gone to Toronto. So I play a simulated patient for a company called Scientific Communications Group, based in New Jersey.
Wow.
So we specialize in rare medical disorders.
Okay.
And I either play the patient with the rare disorder or a parent of a child.
Wow, that's a nice gig.
And I get to travel, I get to eat out, and I work with fantastic people.
And this is on their dime, right? You don't
This
pay
is
for that.
on their, well, somebody's dime.
I mean, what I mean,
Yes,
you don't pay
I
to be in
don't. Yeah, so
Honolulu
I'm paid.
or Canada.
I'm paid to do this, and all of my expenses are covered. It's ideal. I love all of the aspects, and especially the lovely people that I work with. And I think I've been doing it for 7 years.
Terrific. It's a dream job, you're right.
It is. I mean, I love eating out, I love traveling, and working with fantastic people. Seeing beautiful sights that I wouldn't normally see.
That's great. Now, the thing I was going to ask, with all of these many jobs, how do you find a balance between your professional and your personal life?
Well, I have to mention one more job. I'm also the care coordinator for Dr. Hormozi, who is one of the best oculoplastic surgeons in the world, actually.
Wow. Okay.
So if anybody out there wants laser treatment, services, among others, contact me.
There we go. Another
on
reason.
Facebook,
Like I said,
Instagram, I can schedule you for being lasered and hair-free. I've done it, and I love it. Okay.
she is so busy, folks. But again, how do you balance that professional life with your private life?
Lots of drinking. No, I'm kidding. I love being busy. It's fun. It's great. I manage somehow, and I work out a lot too. So exercising.
You even get that in
I
somehow.
get that in.
You get in some workout
I
sessions.
do.
Yeah.
Yes. I think if you're passionate about the things that you do, you find a way to make it all work. And I do.
Terrific.
And it's amazing. And I'm so blessed and so grateful. I'm eternally grateful.
Well, with all these interesting things and things you've asked people to look into, tell people, look over there and tell people your contact information. How can they get a hold of you?
All right. You can find me on Facebook, Neva Kraus. Also on Instagram, Neva Kraus. I'm on Snapchat with the same name. And Twitter, but I don't use Twitter very often. So Facebook is probably my primary source, Instagram as well. And my name right there.
Okay.
I'm the hip chick.
That's
Find
right.
me.
She is. We had to say that because, you know, she has so many things she does. You just can't put her in one little box.
That's right.
And that's great. She's also a Renaissance woman, would be another way to put it.
Okay.
But anyway, I want to thank you for being here. And it was a pleasure. And we hope to have you back.
Great.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Another one of our shows with another fascinating guest. And please watch, share, subscribe, let the world know about us. And we'll see you next time.
You're watching The Paul Stefan Show on TV Free Baltimore.
Hello, I'm Steve Darnall, the publisher of Nostalgia Digest, and you're watching TV Free Baltimore. Well done.
The Despotille is on my shore, Maryland, my Maryland. His torch is at thy temple door, Maryland, my Maryland. Avenge the patriotic roar that fleck the streets of Baltimore, and be the battle queen of yore, Maryland, my Maryland. Thou wilt not cower in the dust, Maryland, my Maryland. Thy beaming sword shall never rust, Maryland, my Maryland. Remember Carroll's sacred trust, remember Howard's warlike thrust, and always onward with the just, Maryland, my Maryland.
This concludes another day of live stream broadcasting from TV Free Baltimore.